You're live on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. And for those who don't know, I am Teddy. And the gentleman on the screen is my good friend, Randy Wooden, my partner in crime, co-host. We share in the shenanigans. And our special guest today is Sara Rosinsky. And I believe I had this right when I say Sarah's hiding out, hanging out, enjoying life in Longmont, Colorado. And so I think is it 9 o'clock for you right now, Sara?
Gee whiz. No, I think it's 10. Okay,
good. That's okay. So cool. So for those who've never met me, I'm Teddy Burriss. I'm a LinkedIn strategist. Actually, I'm referring to myself lately as a LinkedIn advisor. And I teach business professionals how to use LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm getting better at that stuff, Randy. I teach business professionals how to use LinkedIn as a business tool, do webinars, workshops, seminars, one-on-one coaching, YouTube videos, Quora answers. And for those who know me well enough, I'll stand on the street corner proselytizing about the power of using LinkedIn as a business tool. So Randy, did I get all my ducks in a row?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I think we're off and rolling. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. So ready to roll. Show number, 179?
179, dude. Yeah.
Wow. We're closing in on show number 200. So that's that's a bunch.
We got to figure out how to make that a huge party, man. We got to find a sponsor who wants to help us make it a huge party.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who the heck are you, dude?
Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, based in Winston-Salem. I run our professional center. So as you might expect, I work with folks that are maybe degreed or in a salaried kind of a role or aspire to that, maybe recent college grad or kind of that person who's in between jobs or employed, but thinking about the future. And so our services are free. I do work by appointment, and most of my clients are here in the Winston area, but I have them across the country as well. So happy to help, get you on the calendar. You can find me on LinkedIn, but every Wednesday, Teddy and I get together and we have some fun and we learn some things. And this week is no exception. Sara Rosinsky returns, third time, I think, right? Third time for you?
Sounds right.
A repeat offender. Sara has a book called Unflubbify Your Writing. And if you've not heard of that, you're going to hear more about it today. And if you want to up your game when it comes to spelling, grammar, and so forth, and have a little fun at the same time learning, you're in for a good show today. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Teddy. Just as a quick reminder, if you have comments or questions for Sara, put those in the chat area. And Teddy will keep an eye on those. Cool. And we ready to kick this off, are we, Teddy?
It's all about you, man. You are in complete control today, whether you want to or not.
Well, Sara, again, you're back on the show. You are the, I guess, what I'll call an independent advertising copywriter, and your company is Shiny Red Copy, and you've got that cool red typewriter that your grandma's grandma had back in the day, kind of a thing, which is really, really interesting. So I remember those back in the day. But yeah, we're going to learn a lot today about grammar. We're going to learn about spelling, but first, why don't you introduce yourself in a little more detail and sort of what brought you here today?
Yeah. All right.
Take it away.
What do you want to know? I'm type O positive blood. I'm a Capricorn. That's probably not what you want to know.
I like long walks on the beach and, fuzzy puppies. And yeah, aside from that.
Correct. Yes. So yes, I am I'm an independent, I like to say autonomous copywriter. I've been a copywriter my entire career, basically, with a few exceptions in the early years as a, candy striper and a phone answerer, whatever. But
wait a minute. Yeah. Wait a minute. Candy striper. We don't use that term anymore, Sara.
I do. That's what I was. For people who are not 1,000 years old, a candy striper was a volunteer in the hospital who would do whatever needed doing. I, fed patients, I made deliveries, whatever. So
now, did you wear the official business attire?
Yes.
Good.
Had a little smock, a little stripy smock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you moved into copyright. How'd you get your start in the business?
Well, I was freshly graduated from college. I had rent to pay and no employment. I was doing stand-up comedy in the evenings, and I figured the best way to reach employers was to advertise. So I hung up signs in Boston's Back Bay that said, recent Wellesley graduate and aspiring stand-up comedian seeks employment. And I said, I have a car, I'm on the subway line, I can, do this and that. I can't remember how much room I had on the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but I hung that up and did some odd jobs. And eventually someone from an ad agency called me. They needed me to do a particular task that I don't need to go into if you don't want, but essentially it led to me answering the phones and typing, invoices and whatnot at this ad agency. And I learned from the owner of that agency how to do what I do today.
Now, were you a girl Friday?
A girl Friday.
Well, I don't think we called it that, but I was a temp. I mean, I did some temping, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that got your career started. I always ask the why question, always ask the why. At some point in your life, you said, this is the kind of work I want to do. How did that get started? Or help us understand your why.
I have always enjoyed writing. I enjoy writing in an entertaining, playful, irreverent way. This is a great way to make good money doing that. It's creative. You have to solve problems. You get to work with very talented, creative people who design what you've done. Like I got to work with a designer for this, but it's so fun. It's the stakes are high, but nobody dies. It's you have to do a good job, but it's I'm not directing air traffic.
Something that an observation, and one of the things that I like about you, and that's your delivery, because sometimes people who are word nerds are true nerds and they can write, but for them to get up in front of an audience, like in your case, to do stand up or to be able to communicate, to be able to speak, those are two different skills. We think, we're good at communications, but there's a difference. So you want to speak to that at all? What's been your experience over the years with people who are good with words, the written side, versus how that conveys or how that translates into the spoken word?
I hear you. I think a lot of people who appreciate writing, both reading it and doing it, I think a lot of them are introverts and are not comfortable doing what I'm doing right now. I may be an outlier. I love it. I don't mind it at all. And I will say, similar to that, but not what you were just saying, but importantly, I've also noticed that there are a lot of marketers who are not comfortable marketing themselves. And that's a real problem. Part of the reason for my success is that I do not mind promoting myself. And I think if you're uncomfortable doing that, you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, well, and Teddy and I are good examples of that. I mean, we both had to, Teddy markets himself, and for all intensive purposes.
Yes.
Maybe we'll get to that in a second. I kind of do the same thing with Goodwill in terms of getting out in the community and through the media and various outlets to make people aware that we have a professional center. So let's dive into some of the, I guess, what we'll call the landmines that we can trip over or step in or what have you that can hold us back. And this is not just in the personal life, but in the business life too. I mean, realistically, what was that old commercial? People judge you by the words you use. Was that, I forget what that company was, but it stuck with me. And so help us understand. So let's start with what we call, I guess, hypercorrection. What is that? And what do we do about it?
Hypercorrection is in Wikipedia. You can get a more eloquent explanation of it, but essentially it is when we have the best intentions of sounding proper, sounding maybe fancy and educated, and it bites us in the behind because we make a mistake in that effort. There are common examples. One is saying myself when you don't need to, and you ought to only say me. If you say, please deliver the report to Jenkins and me, don't say Jenkins and myself. The only time you need to use that word myself is when you're doing something to yourself. You're amusing yourself, you're scaring yourself, so I would say I amaze myself. That's correct. But if you're talking about delivering case studies or bribes, use the word me.
I hear
People are
that.
afraid.
Yeah.
People are afraid of the word me, and you shouldn't be.
My 3-year-old grandson has a habit of saying, me want this, me want that, me want this, me do that. And every time he says it, my preschool teacher wife tells me to stop this. But I say, no, dude, say I. No, dude, say I want this, I want that. He just retorts or whatever, says it again. Me want this, me want that.
What's that song? Louie Louie. That nobody knows the lyrics to. They use me in there all the time.
Yeah. I'll have to hunt that
Nobody
one down.
knows, but if you look up the lyrics to Louie Louie, you'll find it, Teddy.
Well, recently, the last couple, 3 or 4 days, I've heard him say, they call me Boppy, and he'll say, like Boppy said, I want this. I'm like, yes, I won.
But Boppy, can I tell you something, Boppy?
Yes,
your
ma'am.
your good intentions can backfire, because
yes, I hear you, Rebecca.
There are times. So this is the thing. And this is sort of complex for a 3-year-old. Is that how old you said he was?
He's 3. Yes,
it's a little complex. When you're the subject of the sentence, when you're doing the action, you say, I drink my Arnold Palmer. But when something's happening to you and you are the object, and you say, the roller skater bumped into me. So parents who constantly tell their kids, Johnny and I, Johnny and I, Johnny and I, they hear that so many times that they think every time you're doing. So it is correct to say Johnny and I did graffiti on the federal building. That's correct. But if you say the police arrested Johnny and me.
Yeah. My wife's a preschool teacher, Sarah, and she told me to stop it.
Stop messing with. Well,
also the order of it. So if I said me and Johnny went to the store, that would be incorrect.
You can say I and Johnny did such and such, I believe. It's just more polite to put the other person in front of you. I don't think it's really wrong.
What about you? Y-O-U?
Mm-hmm.
Would I say Teddy and you went to the store, or would I say you and Teddy went to the store?
I believe, and someone can correct me, but I really think it's a little, I don't really think it matters. They're both subjects, and therefore they're interchangeable. You could say, I'm trying to think the names of the Marx brothers, listing them all off.
Groucho and Harpo and a few others. Yeah.
You could order those any way you wanted. They're still doing the action.
Now, Dale Carnegie said to Sarah, her name is the sweetest sound in any language, and Teddy adds, or font. So I would not refer to Sarah as you if I had the ability to refer to Sarah as Sarah.
Yeah, just make sure you spell it right too. That's the other thing.
I got it, buddy. I got it.
Don't go put no H on the end of that one over there, right? So there's that. Are there other hyper corrections? I can think of one off the top of my head anyway, and that's
do share.
Whom. Oh, let me say it with my pinky extended. Whom versus who. So, how do we know what the heck to say there?
So the problem with whom is sometimes it is correct and it sounds so antiquated and stuck up that you're better off breaking the rule and saying who. But I will tell you what's correct, and then you
Okay.
can be the judge.
All
It's
right.
the same dichotomy that we were just talking about. It's a subject and an object.
Hmm.
The subject is who, the object is whom. So to whom should I address this? That's not right. To whom should I address this check for $1 million? Okay, to whom? It's the object of that preposition. Something, the envelope is going to that person. But who left their dentures on the bathroom counter? Right? They're doing the action. So that's who.
Yeah.
But I've seen people say whomever just to sound, on Nextdoor recently, someone said, whomever, let their dog do such and such. No, it's whoever let their dog, because it's the subject of the sentence.
I have a whole lot of different words I would use in that context. So
I'm sure you do, Teddy. That's for the late night version of our show.
yeah.
So we say these things and we're well-intentioned. And I don't know where I'm necessarily going with this, but I mean, do you find that people become kind of entrenched with how they grew up and were taught to speak? Does it become harder for people to change their habits, speech habits, as they get older? Or help us understand that. I would think sometimes people say, you know what, I've been doing this for 50 years. I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it.
Oh, that's a personal
Is it
thing.
personal? Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are folks who get very upset with me and say that all of these guidelines are classist, and if people understand me, what's the big deal? And
Mhm.
that's one type of person. There are those, myself included, who want to keep learning, right? And looking things up and figuring out choices and histories, and why do we do it this way? And so I believe the more you know, the better, and then you can
Mhm.
make your own choices. I break rules frequently with intentionality, but also with confidence, because I know what I'm doing. I don't think there's any harm in understanding what you're doing, and I do think that in the world of business, you're better off following most of the rules, and showing that you at least understand them. That's just the way society is. I'm sorry to those people who, think I'm being too strict or stuck up or whatever it is.
So,
But
yeah. Now, am I the only one who argues with Grammarly?
no, you are not. And also, do not trust Grammarly. Grammarly will stab you in the back.
Yeah, and she does. She tries all the time to do that.
Help us understand
Mhm.
why. And also, I guess in Word, it's, what is it, autocorrect or whatever it's called. What are some of the faux pas here? What are some things and why we need to be
Oh
on
my
our
gosh.
toes as we're going through some of this stuff?
I'm trying. Oh, you know what? Here's an autocorrect thing that I had that just enraged me, that happened within the past 48 hours.
Okay.
I wrote the words, I guess such and such, and my phone wanted to capitalize guess, because that's a brand, I suppose.
Mhm.
And I had to go to extra effort to make sure that that word wasn't capitalized. And that made me so mad. I was like, this is really fundamental. Like, why should I have to do backflips to make this lowercase? So I don't always know why. Sometimes there's a reason. I'll tell you what'll really get you is if you're
Yeah.
trying to learn Spanish and your phone keeps thinking you're trying to type Spanish. That will mess things up badly. Again, the more you know, the more likely you are to notice when those things happen.
Yeah.
And we're talking with Sara Rosinsky. She's the author of Unflubbify Your Writing. I got to ask you, the word unflubbify, where'd that come from? Is that in the dictionary? Did you violate your own protocol here by using a word that is not a word?
We call that a neologism. It's a
Okay.
new word.
I've heard
I
that
made
one
it
before.
up. And the reason, neo is like new, and log, that means words. That's just a
Okay.
made up word, and we have lots of them. And I did that because, as anyone in the advertising industry knows, everything's been done, everything's been taken. Every single clever title you can possibly contrive is already existent. So I had to I had to do something different, and it took me a really long time to come up with that name, I got to tell you. And you missed out on all the great other ideas I had, but yeah. But I realized this is really about avoiding flubs, avoiding these very easy pitfalls that you can,
Now,
Hey, by the way, good, Teddy.
I was saying, in the context of Unflubbify, it is not in Wikipedia yet. It is not in Webster's dictionary yet. But there are, in fact, 2,720 results related to the definition of Unflubbify through Google search, which we may lose one day because they're fighting the U.S. Justice Department. That's a whole other conversation. But anyway, it's all over the internet. So, it's got to be a legit word.
I use it a lot.
Perfect. So that leads me to another question and we talked this right before the show got started about words. Are you a Webster's person as far as
Merriam-Webster
standard?
Yeah.
Or Merriam-Webster. Okay. What are some new words in the last couple, 3 years that have now officially been added to our dictionary? What are some things that it might even make us laugh a little bit? Who knows?
So I think I looked this up right before, and I think I just looked up new words, Merriam-Webster, MacGyver as a verb.
Okay.
Adorkable, which is I guess you'd call that a portmanteau. That's where you're combining two words. Portmanteau was created by Lewis Carroll. Anyway, janky, yeet. Yeah, there's some. Those
Yeet,
are all new words. Yeet. I think that means to jettison.
Jettison.
Yeah.
We use it down here in the
I could be wrong. Carolina. I should double check this. I say that with confidence, and then I'm probably
While you're looking
wrong.
That up. What about things like y'all and we use that a lot around here? Is that an official word, or is that just more of a slang term that just floats around? I don't know.
I might not use y'all in a prenuptial agreement. I mean, there are places that it's probably not tonally correct, but an interesting thing about y'all is in English, we use the same word you for singular and plural.
Sure.
And that's unusual. French has tu for singular and vous for plural, and the same type of thing in Spanish, right? Usted and ustedes, whatever. So in English, that ambiguity can kind of be solved with y'all, because you're saying you all. I guess you could say it, the two words, you all know better. But anyway, y'all is pretty, I like it. The only thing that I will tell you, an editor friend of mine posted on Twitter the other day, she said people who didn't grow up with it misspell it. Yeah. It is spelled Y''ALL.
Yeah, and you can say all of y'all.
Yes, you can.
that's a big bunch of people, I guess.
Yeah. So here's a question, and I believe the person's name is Milan, and she said, by the way, she saw a video of yours a few years ago. No, she saw a video of someone else spoken who asserted that rules pertaining to spelling, punctuation, style are not only overly strict, but maybe racist.
There you go. That's kind of what I was alluding to before.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a long discussion. Mm-hmm. But I will say language is fluid. Language is affected by the people who use it. It is fascinating for that reason. I will say I don't judge anyone for any language that they use. I appreciate where it comes from. Again, in the same way that a stylist might tell you clothing that looks better on you or that will be more likely to get you, respect. We live in a society, so there are just certain conventions to be aware of, and I'm not judging or dismissing anybody for the way they talk or write.
Yeah, and you get into awkwardness too because you can come across as kind of snooty or condescending. And politicians have done this when they're in the South, then suddenly they affect a Southern drawl, and and it's hokey as all get out. But I guess they're trying to. I think they're trying to relate to the audience.
I think it's called code switching, right? You do sort of adapt. Yeah. And you know what? I just encountered that. I just read To Kill a Mockingbird again. It's been a real long time. And Scout, the little girl, asks her African-American nanny person, why do you talk one way when you're around us and another way when you're in your church? She noticed. And, that woman, whose name, Calpurnia explained, that's, so, right, we're all trying to make connections. We're trying to feel like we belong in groups, and it's I just find it fascinating.
When in Rome, speak like a Roman. By the way, Randy, yonder is in Miriam's book.
Okay.
That's an old one.
With an
oldie
definition, yeah.
Oh yeah,
yonder. Hey, by the way, if you have comments or questions for Sara, things you've always wanted to know but were afraid to ask, now's your chance.
Yonder comes from the 14th century.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll never forget the first time I heard that. I was living in Maryland, and I had a cousin, two cousins from South Carolina. Couldn't understand a thing they were freaking saying. and I'm this little kid, and somebody said, "Where's Pawpaw, our grandfather? Where's Pawpaw? He's over yonder." Like, what the heck is that?
That's great. I love it.
We also have slang terms. I grew up in Rhode Island, and oftentimes it depends on my audience, but I'll affect the accent. And also there's some terminology, words that mean one thing in New England, like the word cabinet, for example. And you're from the Boston area, or you've spent some time there. So the word cabinet means one thing there versus what we typically would have in our kitchen. And just all kinds of.
Wait, what does cabinet mean in Rhode Island?
In Rhode Island, it is essentially a milkshake. So a milkshake, yeah, like yeah. Would I lie to you?
That's new to me.
Yeah. So here's the deal. All right. So a milkshake, and I'm old, so maybe I left Rhode Island a long time ago. But a milkshake in Rhode Island is milk and syrup, or however you want to pronounce it. Flavored sweet stuff that goes in with milk. Right? That's a milkshake. But a cabinet is when you start really getting up your game. You put ice cream in there. So now you got ice cream, you got a little milk, and you've got the syrup in there. That's a cabinet.
It's a frappe. A cabinet in Rhode Island is a way to refer to a frappe.
And we just called it a frap in Boston.
Or frap, yeah.
Frap.
Yeah. Which is all that comes from French.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a bubbler, like we pronounce bubbler instead of a water fountain. And just a whole host of things. And part of that, I guess, is just how you grew up and what you were exposed to as a kid, but they have different terms for the same thing.
Well, I like
soda, pop, and Coke.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it when they have.
Yeah. I like I use the term putting new rubbers on the car.
Oh dear, no.
That's a European term, putting rubbers on the car. And Christy, she shared that she had a friend from Rutherford County, North Carolina. Well, I know where that's at, Christy. And they call what some of us call the glove box or the glove compartment. I call it a glove box. Don't ask me why. There's no gloves in mine. But Rutherford calls it a dash pocket.
Oh, cool. I've never heard that.
Yeah. I didn't either. Hey, it's halfway through the show, Teddy. I'm going to take a quick quick break
Yep.
here and yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Hey, you're on Lunch Conversations of Randy and Teddy, and I'm a nice, good-looking one. I'm Teddy, and the other dude is Randy. Our special guest today is Sara Rosinsky, and we're playing with words, and we're learning how to use words maybe more effectively while also enjoying life as well. So, thank you for being on being in our audience today. Remember, we're actively seeking our next sponsor or our next sponsor program, if someone can help us take this show to another level for you. So if you have an idea of someone that we need to talk about in regards to sponsoring a show, introduce that person to us directly. So our special guest again is Sara Rosinsky, and again, glove box. I've never called it that.
Yeah. Hey, I got one for you. Okay, so Sara may break out the chalkboard here and visualize this. Okay.
Then there's that word, Randy. Who has a chalkboard?
The chalkboard. Oh, was I supposed to use a dry mark eraser? No, it's permanent. Anyway, all right. So we're gonna play around a little bit here because this is confusing, I would say, for 95% of the people, and that's the plural possessive. It's what if my name is Russ, Russ, and it's Russ's day to take out the trash. Or the last name is Jones, and it's the Joneses' house, or multiple Joneses live here, not possessive. So let's dissect this stuff because it comes up all the time. Now we don't spell it all the time, but wouldn't it be nice to at least have some kind of clue as to how to proceed with this stuff?
Yes. So this is in the book. It is a little complicated.
Okay. What page is it? Where are we on?
Well, I'm not going to look in the book as I do this, but if you look on page 46, you can see plural possessives. And if you look on page 156, you can see the name situation. The name situation definitely comes into play during the holidays, right? Because people take a photo of themselves with their 4 dogs and they say happy holidays from the Rosinskys, for example. Now, Rosinskys is a really good one to play with or to understand because it ends with a Y. And if you didn't know better, you might think, oh, you change that Y to an IES, don't you? So that's what you might think. Here's what I'm going to
Wow.
Here's the thing about names in particular. Don't ever mess with a name. Always keep it the way it is. So I'm going to do Kennedy. Let's see. Kennedy. You may be familiar with Kennedy.
Yes.
Is this appearing in the correct direction for you?
It is, yes.
Okay. To make that day card, it's just from the Kennedys. You just put an S on the end.
Okay.
That's how you pluralize names. It's not how you pluralize some other things. Don't mess with people's names. So that's why we know keeping up with the Joneses, even though it already ended with an S, you're going to just add an ES, keeping Jones the way it was. So let's see, what's the quickest way?
Okay, so now this is all pluralizing stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to start with that, and then we're gonna move on. Okay,
Teddy, you taking notes on this?
I got a good question for her.
So if it's Mary Jones, then you have a Christmas card, it's from the Joneses. You're just going to add ES on the end.
Oh, okay. So Burriss would be Burriss, double S-E-S.
The Burriss.
Yes. Isn't that how you say it?
Yeah.
Whenever we go over to dinner at the Burrisses, they poison us whenever, or whatever, you know. That's a terrible thing to say. Whenever we go over to the Burrisses, we have such a good time. We have such a good time at the Burrisses. Yeah. Okay.
Well, what about possessive? How about I have a sign in my garage that says the Burrisses. I'm not going to tell you how I did it, Sara. I'm going to ask you how I should have done it.
Well,
there you go.
So here's the thing about so it depends on whether you're just announcing the Burrisses. This mailbox is where the Burrisses live.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to connote that something belongs to you,
That's what
in the
my
same way
intent-
we might say, if you said we had a great time at the Burrisses last night, what you mean is we had a great time at the Burrisses house last night. So
Yeah.
that is possessive, even though you're not saying house, you know. So we had a great time at the Joneses. This is what you do. That's how you make that word possessive.
I
The
gotta go.
Joneses.
I gotta go take that sign down.
So this is
No, you're probably fine. You're probably,
No,
unless
I
it
didn't
said-
put ES. I put Burris's and I just put an apostrophe, nothing more.
So it just says Burriss apostrophe.
Yeah, it might say
That
Burris
doesn't-
apostrophe S, but I did.
that's not even a word, Teddy, is it?
Well, so Burriss apostrophe S. I'm sorry to everybody. I didn't. Burriss apostrophe S is if you would say Teddy Burriss apostrophe S brilliance. Teddy Burriss's brilliance. That is correct for one Teddy, for
Wow.
one Burriss. It's when you get into multiple Burrisses that you have to. Does anyone have a question? Is anyone raising their hand? Because
No, so I get it.
this
I get
is
it.
in the book.
Yeah. And we can go way deep into this, and I apologize for dragging you into my rabbit hole, Sarah.
No, it's a very common. I'm trying to erase things efficiently so I can show you more, because that here.
But
I
this
have a
is
big
the
old
whole
eraser.
reason why
Okay.
Randy and I wanted to do this show, is because there's so many different attempts at doing it correctly, and sometimes it
Yeah.
just gets accepted that we did it wrong, and then sometimes it doesn't.
So in this realm of all of this possession and stuff, a common mistake is called the grocer's apostrophe. And that is like a supermarket grocer.
Yeah.
The mistake is pluralizing by using an apostrophe S. You will see this, and I'm sorry if my handwriting is not perfect. And nobody do this, okay? You'll see a sign that says, carrots cost 69 cents a pound. This is not, I'll put a big X. Don't do that, okay? The only time you want to whip out that apostrophe is when you're showing possession in this situation. You do use it for contractions, but carrots does not have an apostrophe, plural carrots. If you wanted to talk about the carrots color, the plural carrots color, erase, 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 CARROTS.
apostrophe.
That is the color of the dozen carrots, right? The carrots color.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
There
It's
you go.
starting to make sense to me. So
It's in the book. It's in the book.
yeah.
And it's yeah.
And I
Right, so
dropped
if you
a
have-
link to Sarah's book
Yep.
on the chat. So if anybody wants to go read it and become a master of unflubbifying your writing.
So we handled that was pretty ingenious, being able to write that, and
It
be able
helps.
to
You
show
have
it,
to
yeah.
look at it, and again, I apologize on English's behalf. It is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to, if we want to be right about how to use it, if it's in the book, follow what's in the book. So that's the guideline for today. And if somebody wants to get the book, we've got the comment section right now, I think, where you can find the link to it. So here's some other ones. And we could do this all day, but we won't. we have till 1. All right, let's tackle a few of these that well, before we get into the two words like every day and every day, I want to ask you about active versus passive voice.
Mhm.
And help us understand. First of all, let's define those and
What
give
is
us
it?
some examples
Okay.
of that, and how we can use that to our advantage or not.
The active voice is expressing something directly, and the passive voice is expressing something in a roundabout way. And let me explain.
Okay.
I want to have something even more active. I chopped the tomato. right? I'm doing the action, I'm chopping the tomato. Passive would be the tomato was chopped by me.
Ooh, okay.
Very roundabout, isn't it? Like,
Who's going to say that?
Well, yeah, you know, when it gets used a lot, that passive voice, when someone is trying to avoid being blamed. So there is a book called Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me. And there may or may not have been a particular president who said mistakes were made, who didn't want to say, I made a mistake, my henchman and I made a mistake, whatever. So then, having said all of that, I want to say the passive voice is not wrong. You can use it. And there are times when it makes the very most sense. But it does often require expending a few more calories to figure out who's doing the action, and exactly, it's just a little more difficult, circuitous, complex. So if you can, I recommend in your writing to be direct and use the active voice.
All right. So active, I remember from either in the book or whatever, you talked about the road was crossed by the chicken versus chicken across the road.
Right.
And so rather than me try to explain it in a messed up way, why don't you tackle that one?
Well,
that's a good example, actually. Yeah.
It's a great example. And I did not make this up. We're all used to saying, why did the chicken cross the road? The chicken's doing the action. That is the active voice.
Yep.
Why was the road crossed by the chicken is peculiar and circuitous, and that's the passive voice. And maybe if you were the asphalt company that paved the road and you wanted to focus on the road surface, you might say, why was the road, adored by the chicken, whatever, there might be a reason to do that, but normally active is better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it does. Also, let's tackle some of these.
By the way, Randy and Sarah, nobody used the word Alexia.
Oh, I shouldn't ever. No.
Well, no, the device that's on my desk, but the device on my desk just came up and said, "Do you want to hear the joke about why did the egg cross the road?" Or it was something about an egg crossing the road. I'm like, are you listening to this conversation?
The answer to that question is yes.
Yeah,
that's why, Teddy, you need to speak properly so you can educate
that device,
your device there about two things. All right, so this stuff comes up a lot. I see this in everyday writing every day. See, I did, yes. Teddy, I was correct there. There's the every day, 2 words, and then every day. Help us understand how they differ and what we should use in what case.
Yes.
You're cringing.
Well, I see this mistake so often.
Oh, I do too.
The mistake, and again, I am not judging anybody. I don't think you're bad people if you do this, but it is just a very, very common mistake. And I see it in some very beautiful restaurant signs that say, we are open from 9 to 9. And then they will say incorrectly, every day. So I do have a way to remember this and to keep it straight.
Okay.
Every day, as one word, is an adjective. And it means ordinary, it means not special. So you would talk about your everyday shoes or your everyday attire, right? Your everyday habits. It's really not a word that most people use a whole lot. A fancy way to say it is quotidian, but
is that with one T?
Yeah.
Or two? I don't know.
It's QUOTID. Anyway, it's a French word and it means every day. It's kind of fun. But anyway,
I got you.
The way to remember every day 2 words is that you can stick the word single in the middle and it still works. We are open from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. every single day. It should be 2 words every day. I wake up at 5:00 a.m. every single day, right? So more often than you think, it should be 2 words.
Well, that handles every day. How about, do you want to tackle anyway or any way?
You kind of broke up. I heard any, and what was the second part?
Way. So it's a 2
Anyway.
words.
Oh,
Yeah,
anyway.
anyway, 1 word, and then any way. 2 words.
Oh boy. Let's see how I explain that. If I have it good.
We can move on to another. Let's tackle another.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, basically, saying anyway, 2 words, you would say, is there any way you could possibly be less annoying? Is there, you're talking
Looking at
talking
me.
about a single
She
way.
looking at me, Teddy.
It's like any single, is there any conceivable way? If you could stick the word conceivable in there, then it should be 2 words. He goes to school any
way possible.
If you're really talking about a way, then
Any
it's
way
2
possible.
words.
Yeah.
And whereas anyway is like, I have lots
It's
of
like
examples.
regardless or in spite of.
Right. Let's see. Anyway, 117. Let's see if I have some good examples. So here it is. They have a no pets policy, but I walked in with my python anyway. That's 1 word. Or she wears a chicken costume, but she has plenty of patience anyway. It's an adverb that means regardless or anyhow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about, let's tackle another one if you're game. How about sometime or sometime? Or you can put an S on it sometimes. So there's 3 of them.
Yes, that's in here. Again, if you're talking about time, if you're saying, do you have a chunk of time that you can do something, then you want 2 words. Do you have some time that you could clean your room, please? You have some time when we can meet with a marriage counselor. You're talking about a chunk of time. And again, I'd like to provide some good examples for sometime, because I don't know if I can. Sometimes 160 and 61. Thank you to my indexer who did this for me. Okay. Nope. I'm on the wrong page. Okay. 160. Sometime is usually an adverb meaning at some point. I'd like to fly in a wingsuit through Manhattan sometime. His opinions froze sometime during the Eisenhower administration. Do you think you could attempt washing a dish sometime? So that just means at some point.
Yeah.
And then sometimes is an adverb that means occasionally. I still crave the taste of paste sometimes. Sometimes she uses a hearse to pick up clients.
Okay. So, all right, let's tackle another one. Teddy, here's one. Yeah. We did the who and the whom thing. So let's pivot to their brother or sister, whatever, to the who's and whose. WHO apostrophe S.
That one I can explain.
And WHOSE.
Right. So earlier I said that apostrophe is always either going to be showing possession, or it might be showing a contraction. So when you have who apostrophe S, that means either who is or who has. The other one is just about possession. So if you and this really confuses people, because they think, I see an apostrophe, that means possession, right? No. It always means a contraction. I am the copywriter who's who apostrophe S, who's always talking about grammar. Who is always talking about grammar. But if I said, I am the copywriter whose shtick is grammar, that means the shtick belongs to me. So does that make sense? So yeah, possession,
It does.
is the WHOSE. That's the possession one. It's just like your, his, her. It's that
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
It's and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's that one. So
Mhm.
the who's and we just kind of touched on it's briefly. So it is, and I'm going to take this one, I think. So I think I can handle this, Teddy. It is that's a contraction, IT apostrophe S. It's a contraction. It's a contraction for it is. But if I said its color is blue, then that's a possessive.
Flick out the apostrophe.
You don't use no stinking apostrophe in that case.
Yeah, just like his and her. Yeah, his, her, yours. Those are all things that connote possession without an apostrophe. Same deal.
How about into and then into, 2 words? What about
That's
that?
a beast. That's a beast.
So like set up and set up.
It's a setup, Teddy.
So those are kind of two situations, the setup and setup thing. I that's also in the book. Typically, possibly not always, a noun is the solid word, you know, typically. Setup, that's my login, you that's what, but I log in to the computer. Although Google might argue with me on this, or Amazon, one of them has it wrong and it always bugs me. But right, so that's one scenario. The into versus, is that what you were asking about? The into as one word?
Yeah, sure.
So you might, this is also in the book and it just helps sometimes to see these examples. But typically you dive into something. Into is a preposition. There are, you jump into it or there's that. Typically it would be 2 things. If you said, I poked my head in to threaten to ground my kids. So typically the 2 is part of a infinitive. Yeah. So usually it's I broke in order to rob the bank. You know what I mean? Again, the book spells out a lot of examples, but that can be really hard. And also, you can turn in to a driveway, but you can turn into a pillar of salt. So that transformation connotation is.
Well, it depends on where you're driving. You could also turn into a pillar of salt. But I get your point. Turn into something.
It's a transmogrification.
Yeah, it's
transmogrify. Yeah.
Transmogrify. Whoa, Teddy.
One of my faves.
I better write that one down because I'll never remember that. We've got a few minutes left, so we've kind of walked through a lot of these. What about another one? Use to, USE space to, and then used with a D space TO. Used to and used to. You want to tackle that one?
Yes. This is a problem because we say it out loud a lot and the D gets lost.
It does, yeah.
So again, apologies for English. It's tough. Most of the time you do want a D on the end of that word. I would use a D on the end of it if I said, I used to be younger. It's a D. I used to have a bigger dog, right? These are all, they all used to. If you make it negative and say, I didn't used to have
all my teeth.
Whatever. That's true. I didn't used to have all these teeth. Then you can lose the D.
That one's that's just so tricky though. I guess the D is kind of silenced. Nobody's going to know the difference one way or the other.
It's hard, but you notice it when it's wrong. I do.
I have a personal one that I was taught as a youth, and I really try to use it correctly. And I think we mentioned this on the show the last time you were on, and that's the difference between if and whether. And I have a way to remember that I was
Please
taught.
share that, because
So if you can say whether or not, I wonder whether or not it's going to rain today. I wonder whether it's going to rain. If this happens, and then you can put then. If it rains, then I will bring my umbrella. So if it rains, I'll have my umbrella, if that makes sense. So whether or not, I wonder whether or not my Patriots will win a game this year. Not, I wonder if my Patriots will win a game this year. But anyway, that if and whether, people get that mixed up a lot. And weather sounds kind of hooty tooty or whatever, whatever the word is, kind of just say if. But technically, weather is appropriate, I feel, based on my upbringing and whatever. So I try to use the word weather. I wonder whether Teddy is going to ever up my pay. I wonder whether or not Teddy is.
Let's look in the crystal ball.
Nope. Before we wrap up, I have to just say, the used to versus used to, I've consulted my book. The time to opt for used to is when you pair it with the word did. Did you used to give massages to the defendant?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
I love your examples, Sarah. They're all over the freaking place. Their family, their business, some people they think some of your examples are satire. Some people may wonder why you use some of those examples. Court
keep
case.
Keep it fresh, keep it interesting.
Yeah. Our language is such, I've heard many people over the years, and I'm sure both of you have too, say that English is one of the most difficult languages to learn because of all the variables in it and quirky and all the idioms and things that we don't mean literally. The cat's out of the bag and just all of those things that just people go, what are you talking about? And thanks for coming in today, Sarah, to help square us away on this. What are a couple, maybe a couple quick takeaways that you might have for people? Something you want them to read?
Look things up.
Yeah.
It's so easy now. You can just hold down, the control key and right click, and boom, you've got the dictionary entry. It's so easy to check. So I really recommend, I check things every 30 seconds, all the time.
Every day. Every single
yes,
day.
Every single day.
So every day, not every day.
And you also told us you should argue with Grammarly now and then.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So good stuff.
Good deal. Sara Rosinsky, the author of Unflubbify Your Writing. And can you get this on Amazon everywhere and find bookstores around the world? So there it is.
Definitely Amazon.
Let's go with Amazon. But what I like about what you do with this thing is you don't just explain and Teddy touched on this briefly, was you offer ways to remember what's right, and you put it in context versus saying, this is what needs to happen. You help people relate to it. And I think we get, and I'm like this with certain topics where you kind of get intimidated because you don't know. And so you just kind of keep on doing what you do, and you don't try to investigate it because it's up here and you're down here with your thinking. You just weren't exposed to it. So you kind of make it not easy, but you help explain things in a way I think that people can relate to it. And so I appreciate that. Hey, Teddy, next week, we've got a pretty cool show coming up. We've got a mayor coming on.
We have our, is this our first mayor? No, second mayor.
No,
our second mayor.
Second.
So the mayor, by the way, Sarah, thank you very much. Really appreciate you showing up and playing with us and making us think. So we're appreciative of that. Next week, Mayor Nancy Vaughn from Greensboro, North Carolina will be our special guest. And she's going to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Greensboro, and maybe she'll share with us why she is still the mayor, why she became mayor. And so, join us next week, 11:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I can promise you that Randy and I are working on even more fabulous special guests because we've got to keep this thing going. bringing great people to the show and delighting and informing. Boom, waka waka. Randy, anything else?
No, I think we're in good shape. Again, if there are sponsors out there that want to hitch a ride with us, we'd love to at least have that discussion with you. Sara Rosinsky, we'll have you back again. Are you coming out with a new book, by the way, real quick? Anything on the horizon?
Not imminently, but maybe one day.
There we go.
Got it. Well, you keep us in the loop and let us know. Thank you again, Sara. Teddy, take care.
Thank you.
And is lunch on you again today, or
Oh,
is
peanut butter and jelly, dude.
Gotcha. All right, guys.
All right. See y'all later.
Have a good day.
Sarah,
See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks.